This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus on a very quiet Sunday morning. Let's talk about some news. And the big story that I want to talk about are the protests happening in Prague and in Paris that took place Saturday. And in Prague, we had very big protests. We're talking around 70,000 to 100,000 people. They got onto the streets and they were protesting the terrible living conditions and the cost of living, which has skyrocketed in the months since the EU imposed sanctions on Russia. And it's very important to point that out. The mainstream media, they will blame the energy crisis, the cost of living crisis, the recession. They will blame it on Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and they'll stop there. But the real reason that we're going to be going through this economic crisis, and we're just at the beginning of this thing, the real reason is due not only to the pandemic, the lockdowns, the money printing, but the EU sanctions, the collective West sanctions on Russia, not Putin's invasion of Ukraine, because that's what they always say. Well, we're going to have this energy crisis and we have this economic crisis because Putin invaded Ukraine. That is fiction. That is a lie. The reason that we're having this energy crisis, one of the reasons, is because of the galactically dumb sanctions that the EU and the collective West decided to place on Russia under the misguided belief, the hubris, that this economic shock and awe would lead to some sort of regime change in the Kremlin, which failed spectacularly. So they'll always say, we're going to have difficulties in Europe. We're going to have a hard time. It's the end of abundance. We're all going to have to sacrifice because of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. There's an end of abundance. There's going to be sacrifice. There's an economic crisis for all of us because of the dumb sanctions that our dumb leadership put in place. Anyway, let me put up some photos and some videos from the protests in Prague. And let me know, people that live in Prague, in Czechia, the Czech Republic, let me know if these were indeed big protests for your country, for your city. It looks like these are big protests, but look at the signs that people were holding up. They were holding up images of Prime Minister Petr Fiala, dressed up in NATO, EU, Ukraine, US fashion, the hat, the tie, the NATO tie, the Ukraine shirt. So they had banners of the Prime Minister wearing all of the globalist type of colors, and some of the banners in the crowd said stuff like "incompetent sellouts" in reference to the government. They said stuff like, "Why don't you go F yourself, Petr Fiala, the Prime Minister of Czechia." That's what some of the banners said at this protest. And you got to remember, the elections. Gosh, when were the elections? I think in October 2021 that they took place in Czechia, or was it March 2021? Anyway, there were elections recently in the Czech Republic, in Czechia, and in those elections you had the populist leader, Babiš. He was like the populist leader, and I don't want to say he was anti-EU, but he was the type of leader that would, every now and then, he would go against the EU dictates. So he was kind of a little bit of a question mark for the EU kleptocrats and the ruling elite in Europe. Even though I think he was a very successful businessman, like a billionaire status businessman, but he had this sovereigntist, populist streak in him. And so what they did is, the EU, they cobbled together a coalition of every other party. They put the communists together with the Greens, with the liberals, and just whatever, ultra right wing. They put together all the parties They cobbled them together into one coalition so that they could beat Babic, and it worked. This is pretty much just a rough summary of what happened, and it worked. And you ended up with this Peter Fiala guy as prime minister, who's super, uber, ultra friendly to Van der Crazy and the EU kleptocrats. And now you're getting the results of that election technique that was used by the EU. And they tried to do the same thing to Hungary and to Viktor Orban, but that failed because Viktor Orban won by gigantic margins. He blew apart this cobbled together coalition that the EU implemented in the Czech Republic. They tried to copy and paste it over in Hungary to get rid of Orban, and it failed. Orban crushed the opposition in the elections in Hungary. But, the protests, big protests, at least it looks to me like these were big protests in Prague. You also had big protests in Paris. I believe the protests in Paris, though I haven't been able to quite confirm it yet, the mainstream media is not really reporting much on the protests in Paris. So the only sources that I have for now is social media, Telegram and Twitter. But it looks like the protests that took place in Paris over the weekend were also about the cost of living crisis, the energy costs, the recession, inflation, and just basically telling Macron, you suck. Basically, those are the protests in France as well. The incompetent leadership of Emmanuel Macron. But, Macron was recently voted in. I mean, we had recent elections in France, and he won, even though the citizens of France during the parliament elections, they did not vote for Macron's coalition. So they responded. On the one hand, Macron won another term as president. But on the other hand, the public spoke through the parliament elections, and they voiced their discontent with government. Well, they're also getting out onto the streets now, and it is September 3rd. Is it September 3rd today? September 4th. Gosh. Anyway, it is September 4th, Labor Day weekend, actually, in the U.S. and in other places. And, summer's over. Everyone's back from their holidays. And now we're going to start to see the protests. Now we're going to start to see people getting onto the streets, which is why you saw all of August, you saw the EU leadership, Borrell, who else? NATO's Stoltenberg, Macron, the end of abundance. And then, of course, you had the famous line from Annalena Baerbock, from Baerbock, the Green Party foreign minister, where she said, our voters, I don't care what the voters say. I don't care what the citizens say. We're all in with Ukraine. I don't care. That's why you had all of these statements made from all of these people, these EU leadership, end of abundance, you're going to suffer, things are going to be bad, but blame it on Putin, because they understood that come September, once the summer is over, that's when people are going to head onto the streets. Because, in the summer month, everyone's kind of, in August, everyone's going to the beach or they're holidaying, or, they're kind of, your head is kind of in the summer clouds, right? The, what do they say in the US, the dog days of summer, right? Now reality's gonna come back. People are gonna go back to work, or they're gonna start to look for work, and everyone's gonna start to get into the normal grind of things, and the protests are gonna begin, and they're gonna begin in a big way, because the crisis is just starting. We just got the news with Nord Stream that is completely now shut off. Nord Stream 1, completely shut off, from 100% to 60% to 20% to zero in a matter of months. That's been the progressive decline in the gas flow from Nord Stream 1. I talked about this in my video yesterday, but there is a little bit of gray area with regards to the Nord Stream 1 issue, which let me try to clear it up a bit, because Gazprom, they came out with statements saying that Siemens absolutely knows what what's going on with Nord Stream 1. Actually, Gazprom said Siemens was there when they were doing their maintenance. A joint inspection was carried out at the Portovaya compression station near St. Petersburg with Siemens Energy, which maintains the turbine, Gazprom said. Gazprom highlighted that the oil leak detection report was also signed by representatives of Siemens, citing the German company as saying that the necessary repairs could only be done in the conditions of a specialized workshop. So Gazprom was saying that when they were doing this maintenance, Siemens was with them and that Siemens signed off on this. And we don't know where the maintenance is going to take place. We have been here in Canada, but that's not 100% confirmed. I actually said that in the video I did yesterday. So it's not confirmed that the turbine is going to be taken to Canada or what Siemens is going to do. But Gazprom is saying, you know what, Siemens was there. They saw everything. They signed off on everything. So, you know, we're not making this up. This oil leak is not made up. Siemens was there. They saw it. But Siemens, they told Reuters and the collective West mainstream media that they have no idea what's going on with this oil leak and this turbine that has now led to Nord Stream being at zero gas flow. From Reuters, Siemens Energy on Saturday said as of September 2nd, 2200 hours Central European time, it was not involved in maintenance work on the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline and had no service request from Russia's Gazprom. Earlier on Saturday, Gazprom said Siemens Energy was ready to help repair broken equipment for the pipeline, but there was nowhere available for them to carry out the work. So which one is it? Was Siemens there? Did they sign off on the maintenance? Did they see the oil leak? Did they see the problem? Or is Gazprom making this up and Siemens was nowhere on site and they have no idea what's going on? Which one is it? If Gazprom can release the maintenance report, the document that Siemens signed, I don't know, a redacted document, if this is possible, release it. Let's see. Why would Gazprom say that Siemens signed off on this if Siemens was not there? Why would they come out with that kind of statement and say, we've got the signatures of Siemens? So, I don't know. It sounds like either Siemens is one confused company, or that they're trying to deflect away from their responsibility, at least with regards to the collective West mainstream media. So I thought I would clear that up with regards to the pipeline and the turbine and the maintenance and everything there. Let's give it a couple more days. Let's see who's lying, who's saying the truth and who isn't. And let's see if this turbine does have to go to Canada, if that is indeed the case. But the end result is the same. No gas to Germany via Nord Stream 1. From what I understand, the Yamal pipeline is in kind of a reverse flow so that the gas from Yamal, which was supposed to go to Germany, is actually being rerouted to other countries who are low on gas. What else? Ukraine has turned off various gas flows via the Druzhba. We are getting reports from the British MI6 that Russia is going to be closing the pipeline, all the pipelines from Ukraine anyway. So Ukraine's not only going to lose those transit fees, but those pipelines are old and they're in terrible shape. And Ukraine doesn't want to undergo any maintenance of those pipelines, any repairs of those pipelines, which should have been done a long time ago. And Russia and Gazprom were telling Ukraine, we need to fix these old Soviet systems. Ukraine refused. And now it looks like that Gazprom's going to turn off the gas transit via Ukraine as well. And that only leaves, for the most part, TurkStream. And TurkStream is going to be used to fulfill the gas flow to countries like Hungary, which has signed gas agreements with Moscow and with Gazprom, long-term gas agreements to secure their energy position going forward. So Hungary is pretty much, and Serbia as well. Hungary and Serbia are pretty much the only countries in Europe. Maybe there's more that I'm missing, but they're the only countries that have decided to sign long-term gas agreements with Gazprom, with Russia. and Turk Stream is going to be used to secure the gas flows to those countries. Every other pipeline is either shut down, is in the process of being shut down, will most likely be shut down, or is trying to do some sort of reverse flow in order to help out other EU countries that have very low gas storage. And the European Union now, they're betting everything on this 80% gas storage fill, which Alexander in his video yesterday described it perfectly. This 80% gas storage fill is not meant to actually provide continuous gas to EU countries. These storage facilities, which were maintained and run by Gazprom as part of a gas system, these storage fills were used in order to supplement and to smooth out any stoppages or any bumps in the regular gas flow of the pipelines. This was part of the storage is actually in place to keep the gas flowing smoothly should you have any maintenance that would take place in the main gas pipelines. That's why you had those storage facilities, not as a main source of delivering gas to the EU. And keep in mind that these storage facilities, like the one in Germany, was also confiscated from Russia and from Gazprom. You know, the German government, Habeck, he made a decision to steal these storage facilities, which were being operated and run by Gazprom as part of a gas delivery system. So this is an absolute freaking disaster that's going to happen. This is why you're going to see many people from many EU countries heading onto the streets for the entire winter months. You know, autumn, winter months. This is going to be a weekly occurrence of people getting onto the streets because we're just at the very beginning. So I thought I would give that update as to the energy situation. It is not looking good. And let's do a real quick update with Bidenopolis' speech that he gave the other day from Philadelphia. What's it being dubbed? The Dark Brandon. The Dark Brandon speech from Philadelphia. I like that. And Bidenopolis, Greece's favorite son, he's actually trying to walk back what he said during that speech. I think it was Peter Ducey from Fox News gave him the question the other day at an event, and he said, you know, do you have anything to say about branding, 70 million people, whatever it is, 70 million people in the United States as enemies of the state, as extremists? And Bidenopolis was like, oh, I didn't say that, I didn't mean that. And he was just trying to walk it back because the Biden White House, they realized what a freaking train wreck disaster that speech and that set design was. I mean, Biden was ramped up, by the way. Did you see him? I haven't seen Biden that energized in like 50 years. I mean, he was like, whatever drug they gave him, whatever they pumped him up with, boy, did it work, because he was like on full dictator mode. He was really ramped up. But yeah, he's trying to walk it back. It was an absolute disaster. That's a historic speech. Those photos, those images, that speech, that's going to go down in history. The worst speech ever made by a U.S. president, probably, but that's going to go down in history. Those photos, that's going to haunt Biden forever. No doubt about it. CNN, I don't know if you heard about this, but CNN during the speech, the televised speech, CNN even noticed how bad the set looked, the entire set design, and the blood red behind Biden. And during the speech, CNN was digitally editing the color of that red, and they were trying to make it into more of like a pinkish color, because they even saw it. They saw the optics, and they were like, oh my God, at least let's try to do something. So they were trying to actually take that red color and manipulate it so it didn't look so terrifying. But they were busted. People on the internet, they caught what CNN was doing. And there's videos out there which show the gradual changing from the CNN broadcast of the color from like red to pink. And then when you go to other broadcasts of the speech, you notice that there was no color change. So it was just CNN that was trying to manipulate the color in real time as Brandon and Bidenopolis. I've actually heard people call them Bidenakis. That's a good name, but I'll stick with Bidenopolis. As Bidenopolis was speaking, they were trying to manipulate the color. Anyway, that is what that's the update with regards to the Bidenopolis speech. And since we're talking about the U.S., we have this report from two stories from the U.S. This report coming out of John Kirby during an interview, actually, where he said the U.S. is ruling out a Russia visa ban. Kirby said that Washington won't restrict the visas for all Russians as punishment for Russia's actions in Ukraine, said John Kirby, the U.S. National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications. Wow, what a title. In an interview with DOZD TV channel that was released on Saturday, the U.S. has introduced visa restrictions for individual Russians whom it considers to be regime supporters, Kirby said. However, Washington doesn't believe that holding all Russians accountable is a productive measure, as the U.S. decisions shouldn't be turned into a war with the entire Russian people. It's not the Russian people who should be blamed, but President Vladimir Putin and his cabinet, Kirby explained. Boy, oh boy. I love it when the Biden White House, when the U.S. does this to the EU. So the Biden White House, they put pressure on Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Finland, and they told them, look, we want you guys to press for a travel ban. We want you guys to really press hard for an EU travel ban for Russian citizens, and they pretty much got it. I mean, the EU is going to say it's not an all-out full travel ban, but you know it is. It's a pretty significant travel ban that they placed on Russia, and the U.S. You know they push their client states, the Baltic states and Poland and Finland, to do it, and it went through. It went through in the 8th package of sanctions, right? And then the U.S. comes out a couple of days later and they say, yeah, but you know, we're not going to place a Russian travel ban. They do this all the time to Europe. I'm telling you, the EU leaders are dumber than the Bidenopolis White House leadership. No doubt about it. Van der Crazy, Michelle, Borrell, they're dumber than Bidenopolis, Harris, Blinken, Sullivan. No doubt about it. Boy, they always do this to the EU. They did the same thing with fertilizer, right? I remember with fertilizer, the Biden White House was telling the EU leadership, yeah, you know, put sanctions on fertilizer, put sanctions on Russian wheat and food. Do it. And Van der Crazy was like, yeah, do it. Ban fertilizer, ban wheat. And that was Van der Crazy, right? And she got it through. And then the Biden White House, they come out and they say, well, you know, we haven't put a ban on fertilizers and wheat. They do this all the time. And the EU falls for it all the time. It's like the coyote chasing the the roadrunner. The coyote is always falling. Always. Constantly, anyway. So the Bidenopolis White House, they are going to be giving another, let's see, 11.7 billion to supposedly to Ukraine. Is that the new number? Yeah, 11.7 billion package to Ukraine, which includes 4.5 billion for military equipment and replenishment of Pentagon stockpiles, 2.7 billion on defense and intelligence aid for Ukraine, and 4.5 billion on budgetary support for the government in Kiev. So the White House has asked Congress on Friday to approve another 11.7 billion in military aid for Ukraine and its conflict with Russia. The sum was included in an emergency funding request for 47.1 billion, which the Biden administration said was also required for its response to that disease, and then that new disease, as well as disaster relief efforts. Anyway, let's take a look at these numbers. 11.7 billion is what the ask is going to be. 4.5 billion for military equipment and replenishment of Pentagon stockpiles. That's a military industrial complex contract. That's all that is. That's not going to Ukraine. That's going to be money that is going to be dished out in the form of MIC contracts. The Biden White House is going to say, look, we need more switchblades, we need more javelinas and HIMARS, and we need these weapons, and these are going to be weapons that the military-industrial complex is going to have to now produce. And these are going to be weapons that will be given to Ukraine in 2024, 2025, under the premise that we're building Ukraine's long-term military security, right? That's how they're going to frame this. This is for the long-term military security of Ukraine, but it's just basically a 4.5 billion MIC contract. And if Ukraine doesn't exist in the next 6 months or a year, all these weapons, they'll either go to the U.S. stockpile or they'll be sold elsewhere, whatever. So the important part is that the MIC is going to get 4.5 billion. So this has nothing to do with the conflict taking place now, nor is it going to make any kind of difference. 2.7 billion on defense intelligence aid for Ukraine. Okay, that's 2.7 billion. There, you may be looking at some money being allocated to weapons, but defense and intelligence aid, consultants, trainers, stuff like that. And then you have 4.5 billion on budgetary support for the government in Kiev. This is just basically washing money, right? Okay, so Ukraine said 5-6 months ago that they need 5 billion euros a month to stay afloat because that's their deficit. Then it went up to 7, then it went up to 9, and now I'm getting reports that it's like 11 billion that they need every month in order to stay afloat. There are reports from the finance ministry in Ukraine that they have a 50 billion budget deficit that they're running. By the end of 2022, there'll be 50 billion in the hole. And this money is kind of a Band-Aid on top of a gaping wound. But even then, a lot of this money, which is going to be given to Zelensky so he can buy his 15th home in Italy, in Tuscany, God knows where, he's going to buy his home, and then he has to pay all his producers and his script writers and government officials, and that big fat raise for the parliament MPs, for the ministers there. Remember, they're getting 70% raises as well. So a lot of this money is going to go to government officials. Then I'm sure a lot of the money is going to be used in order to pay salaries of the military, because it's the U.S. and the EU that are paying all the salaries across the board for Ukraine to keep the war going. And then a lot of this money is just going to be washed out of Ukraine, right? It's going to go back into the pockets of the collective West oligarch class and the politicians there. So this 4.5 billion is also, forget about it. So really what you're looking at in this $11.7 billion package is really 2.7 billion on defense and intelligence aid for Ukraine. And who even knows what that really means as far as actual, weapons or support for Ukraine in this conflict. The rest of this package is just MIC money, the washing, the laundering of money, paying salaries, officials in Ukraine, and buying Zelensky more homes and stuff like that. So, this is, what a racket. What a racket this is. Let's see, do I have any more stories to talk about before I get to a clown world? One more story. And that has to do with another failed attempt at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Now, at first, this attempt took place on Friday night, and at first, this is the second attempt, by the way, to seize the ZNPP, the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia, while the IAEA officials are doing their work. At first, when I heard about a second attempt, I said, no way, this can't be right. And the only reports of a second attempt to go after the ZNPP was coming from local officials in Zaporizhzhia. But then we got the confirmation from the Russian Ministry of Defense, and this is what they said. The Russian Ministry of Defense has confirmed that Ukraine has made yet another attempt to take over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant late on Friday, revealing some details of Kiev's operation. which failed. Over 40 motorboats divided into two groups and carrying over 250 Ukrainian special operation troops and foreign mercenaries tried to land on the coast of the Kakhovka reservoir not far from Energodar, host city of the nuclear power plant. The ministry statement said on Saturday the attackers were quickly spotted and struck by Russia's Su-30 jets and Ka-52 attack helicopters. Those strikes sunk some 20 boats, while the rest turned around and retreated. The remaining Ukrainian troops were then targeted by the Russian artillery as they tried getting ashore in the Ukrainian-controlled territory, the defense ministry said. According to Moscow, the failed attack on the nuclear power plant saw 47 Ukrainian service personnel killed, including 10 foreign mercenaries, with at least 20 others wounded. So another failed attack at the ZNPP. We are getting reports from the Ukrainian side of things that they've, and I think this is true, they've managed to take out a bridge in this area, in this Kakhovka area. But from what I understand from subsequent reports, this wasn't really a bridge. It was a very narrow canal, which could be fixed by the Russians within a matter of hours or even minutes. It was like a very narrow, like 30 or 50 foot, like crossing. So I'm a little hazy with these reports, to be quite honest. I just kind of skimmed through and saw these reports that, from the Ukraine side of things, it was, we've cut them off at this bridge, and now we've got, the Russian forces, essentially we're going to be surrounding them and stuff like this. They can't retreat back. But then I was getting other reports that were studying the satellite images, noting that this crossing that was taken out by multiple HIMARS missile strikes is actually a very narrow crossing that the Russians can put back in place in no time. So let's give it another day to see where things are going. But I just want to make a point with regards to the second failed attempt to take over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant or make some headway into this Energodar region. Brian at the New Atlas, I think he came up with a really, really good point in his analysis with this Kherson counteroffensive, the failure of this Kherson counteroffensive. And he likened this second attempt to create some sort of landing at Energodar and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant area as exactly what Ukraine was doing with regards to the Azovstal and all the failed attempts to extract the Azov militia that was trapped in Azovstal. Remember that? The boats coming in and the helicopters and all these failed landings to try and get those Azov guys out of Azovstal. They made like 5, 7, 8, 9 attempts to get these guys out, and every attempt failed one after another. Brian makes the point that this is kind of like the same exact thing. I mean, it really is. I thought that was a really smart point, and he's exactly right. This really reminds me of Azovstal, the desperation, the panic, and all of these failed attempts to try and create some sort of narrative of Ukraine winning some significant battle or taking over a significant installation or a nuclear power plant or extracting Azov militants from Azovstal. All of this is like constructed in order to create some sort of movie narrative. It really is. It doesn't seem like there's a military strategic endgame here, but more of a cinema plot line. But I did say in my video the other day that the most likely thinking from Boris Johnson and Zelensky as they were putting this plan together was to take over the ZNPP while the IAEA were there, and then claim that under UN law and international law, Ukraine is obligated to protect the power plant, and that means that Russia has to leave and allow Ukraine to secure the area. That was most likely their thinking, but now it's to the point where I think it's the Zelensky regime saying, we're not going to give up. let's try and see if we can create something at the ZMPP because, man, this would make a really good flick. And I'm sure Lenski is sitting there saying, and I can even star in this movie. And Adastovich is saying, yeah, and I can be the co-star. And Podolyak is saying, yeah, and I can also be in this flick. I mean, that's what this reminds me of. It's really bizarre. These are really bizarre tactics. These are tactics of a comedian actor and Bojo the clown. So anyway, let's do a clown world since we're talking about Ojo the clown. And this clown world, well, it's coming from the UK. This is an interesting one. It's a strange clown world, to be quite honest. At first I read the headline and I was like, this isn't really an interesting story. Then someone sent me an email and they said, this is a clown world. And then I actually read the story and I was like, yeah, this is a clown world. All right, UK government tests carbon paper copying. Carbon paper copying has been stress tested by Whitehall staffers as Britain braces for potential blackouts this winter. The Financial Times reported on Friday, citing 3 officials familiar with the matter. The old-fashioned copying technique may be used for internal government correspondence and was already tested during recent emergency drills. The idea is you'd have people running up and down Whitehall handing out carbon copies of documents to colleagues at other departments or agencies to keep people in touch, one of the officials told the newspaper. This is all about addressing concerns over how to keep the government communicating with each other in the event of a crisis. Let's see. Maybe this is just part of their standard, crisis operations, their crisis drills. I mean, maybe this is just the case. But allegedly, the narrative here is that they're going through this stress test because of blackouts. And if the government goes dark, well, they're going to need to find ways for the government to continue to communicate. So, carbon copying things, pencil and paper, these types of things, typewriters, all these things are going to probably be implemented because the thinking is that there's not going to be any electricity, any power to keep the lights on in the government, in the UK government. Oh boy. Carbon paper has been one of the elements of the drills carried out across some departments to stress test how the government could keep functioning in the event of a major crisis, such as a widespread energy blackout or nuclear war, the newspaper explained. All right. Energy blackout, which is very likely. I think that's going to be coming. That's pretty much a given. That's baked in. Nuclear war. Well, that's terrifying. But then again, Liz Truss, she did make the statement the other week, and she said that, yeah, she's ready to press that button. She actually said it twice. Yeah, I'm ready. I'll do it. I'll press that button. Where is it? Where's that button? I'll press it. Damn it, give me that button. That was Liz Truss last week. So, all right. That's the clown world. I'll leave it there. And I will sign off from my first day here in Nicosia, Cyprus, the capital of Cyprus. Check out the Duran on theduran.locals.com. Check out the Duran on our YouTube channel and look for Alexander's YouTube channel and look for all of our channels, not only on YouTube, but also on Rumble and on ODYSEE and on BitChute. And also look for our Telegram channel as well. And what else? That's it. Duran Shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Take care.